Before we get started, I've got some exciting news. HelloFresh is now a proud sponsor of Divorce and Beyond. If you've been thinking about cutting back on grocery bills, avoiding food waste, or just getting dinner on the table without stress, this is your moment because right now, HelloFresh is offering one free item in every box for life. That's right, every single box you order includes a free item forever. And just to give you a taste of what that looks like, get it, taste, I got pineapple upside down cakes in my first order. I originally discovered HelloFresh during the pandemic, and I fell in love with learning new recipes and expanding our dinner routine. I let it go for a while because, hey, I live in Chicago with world-class restaurants on every corner, but with today's rising costs, HelloFresh is back on my table, and I'm so glad it is. So if you're ready to save time, money, and dinner, go to divorceandbeyond.com/HelloFresh and sign up today to grab that free item for life. You can also find a link in the show notes or divorceandbeyond.com/HelloFresh. And now let's get into today's episode.
Coming up on today's episode of the Divorce and Beyond podcast.
Instead of the boxing gloves, people should really think I'm looking for white glove service. I'm looking for somebody to delicately handle my family, my children, my finances, to take care, to really handle this properly and guide me to a very comfortable future as best as it can be.
Hello, and welcome to the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host. As a top divorce attorney and family law mediator for 30 years, I know what you need to know to get through your divorce and, most importantly, how to move beyond it to thrive and transition to your new future. My experts and I are here to give you the insider view into the process, so listen in for the wisdom and expert information you need on your journey through divorce and beyond. Welcome to today's podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host. So listeners, today's episode is one that you do not want to miss because we are going to be talking about something that today may feel almost impossible to you, but we know that it is, and that is having a peaceful, efficient, and yes, even amicable divorce. It is possible, and today's guest is living proof. I am joined by Tracy Ann Moore-Grant. She's a leading family law attorney, mediator, and importantly, she's the founder of the groundbreaking Amicable Divorce Network, which is now in operation in the United States, Canada, and the UK. Tracy Ann has been leading the charge to change how we divorce, and she does it through the network by connecting clients with vetted, resolution-focused professionals and offering a unique court-free divorce process that dramatically reduces time, cost, and emotional strain. And now she's pulled together the collective wisdom of 40 top divorce professionals, including yours truly, into a powerhouse new resource called Divorce Amicably, your roadmap to resolution. With over 80 essential topics to divorce, this nearly 500-page book is a must-have guide for anyone facing or considering divorce. In the episode, we'll be talking about how the book came to be, some surprising chapters inside, and why amicable does not mean you and your ex are best friends. It means you've got the right team guiding you toward a better future. Or a better beyond, as I like to say. So if you want a real-world look at how to make divorce less destructive and more constructive, stay tuned. This is the roadmap you've been waiting for. So Tracy Ann, I'm so glad to have you back. It's been a long time since 2022. We have a lot to talk about.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Well, and I was looking back on your old episode and we entitled it was shortly after you started the Amicable Divorce Network, and we entitled that episode, Can You Really Have an Amicable Divorce? And I have to say, with how you've grown and all the exciting things that we're going to talk about in this episode, spoiler alert, everyone. Yes, apparently you can have an amicable divorce. So bravo.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there's a huge misconception. Just to clarify, the professionals are vetted for being amicable, reasonable, working well together. The parties going through divorce, all the same issues, complicated emotions and feelings. We just help them resolve that outside of court and now are doing that all over the world.
I know. Well, let's talk about that, because when you were here last time, you were in, I wouldn't say a handful of states, but it was 10-ish, I think. And now you're worldwide.
We are. Yeah. We're in the United States, of course, Canada, and the United Kingdom. And it's been really great to connect with like-minded professionals. We continue to be the only organization in the world that vets divorce professionals for being experienced, resolution focused, and engaging in fair billing practices. And it's been so wonderful to connect clients looking for a really great divorce solution to a vetted professional.
Well, and I know one of the things that will jump out to my listeners is that fair billing practices.
Oh, yes.
Because, right, well, and it makes sense. I mean, to be fair to those who are listening, we know one of the major stressors for people, and rightly so, is the very high cost of getting divorced. And the reality is you need the professionals. There's a reason why they have the training and the skills that they have, but they do come at a premium. So I think you are very prescient, and we're really on top of things, because now the whole billable hour is starting to fail, and we're seeing a lot of change in our industry. But you were one of the first professionals to really jump on the fact that that is such a pain point for people.
Yeah, I think it terrifies people, the unknown. And is one of the reasons I started the network is I would have a new client come to me and they would ask two very reasonable questions. How long is this divorce going to take, and how expensive is it going to be? And I couldn't answer that question for them, because I would say, well, it really matters who your spouse hires. Are they a high conflict person? Are they a resolution focused person? And I really didn't like that controlled my client's destiny. So initially I started a curated list of people who worked well together, and that curated list has just grown to be global. So now when a client comes to me and they want an amicable divorce, I can answer those questions very easily for them. I can say 90 to 120 days and definitely less than $10,000.
90 to 120 days. First of all, let me just point out to people that didn't exist in my 30 plus years of practice. And certainly less. I mean, my retainers were more than $10,000 back in the day when I was practicing.
For sure.
And not because, of anything other than it was going to cost at a minimum that much. So you started with that. So the ability to have that type of assurance up front and to know that you're getting vetted professionals. Talk a little bit about the vetting process, because having been through it, I know, but tell the listeners.
Yeah. Another spoiler alert, Susan was approved and is a member. So one really interesting thing that we do is when somebody applies for membership, we vet them to their colleagues. So as we know, being in the family law industry, there's often not a lot of kind words that you might say about your colleagues, not you or I, of course, but so it really is the test of, do you want to work with this person? Have you seen their bill in court or in a case? Have you seen them in a mediation? You've looked under the hood, you've been co-counsel with them, you've been opposing counsel with them, you've been their mediator. What do you think? And our members are very protective of who gets in the network. And so they give us very candid feedback. And so we're very stringent on who gets in, so that if somebody who is facing a challenging divorce comes to our database and they reach out to somebody, we know that they've gotten a vetted professional that has our seal of approval.
Well, and I can only imagine, because my listeners know I'm always trying to sort of give them the inside story on certain things that we know, you and I, after so many years of practice. And here's one of those little golden nuggets for you all. Every attorney who's been practicing in family law or mediator who has been doing it for a while has certain names that when they hear those attorneys are involved in the case, they know they're going to have to charge more.
Yes.
Because they know those attorneys are not the ones
That's
that
right.
you want to work with. So the fact that your vetting process includes the peer review, I can only imagine some of the comments that you've gotten.
They're private. Yes, they only go to our membership board, but we do ask our members to speak candidly, and they do, because they don't want to be handling an amicable case against the very type of professional they're trying not to work with. And so they recommend colleagues that they work well with and are very good with their feedback so that the people who are on our list can give a really amicable result, because the amicable part really is the professionals. And it doesn't mean that we're best friends and, we're going out for drinks, but it means that it really just means I can have a reasonable conversation with this person instead of filing 10 motions in court that takes 6 months to a year to get through. I can pick up the phone and call opposing counsel, talk about the issue, reach a reasonable conclusion, and in 10 minutes, we're done. And that simply isn't the way that things happen in traditional litigation, which extends the cost, the time, the conflict. So we can talk about those timelines and the cost of our process because we're really trimming out all the fats. We have professionals dedicated to solutions in the future. And we've been really successful helping a ton of people.
And another thing to point out, I want people to understand, by finding professionals and creating a process that includes what you're calling amicable professionals, which again does not mean, although they might be very cordial to each other, there's no reason not to be. But although I used to have clients who hated it when I'd ask someone how
I think that's a misconception with clients. Like, it's okay that I'm friendly with opposing counsel because that means I can resolve your issue quickly and efficiently. It's the ones you can't talk to that are really the problem.
Well, exactly, right? And the ones that you can talk to, the other thing for clients to understand is by having reasonable attorneys and other professionals in there who can have that 10-minute phone call instead of filing the 20-hour motion, or that means that your case is going to veer into the amicable. Correct. Because it's the filing the 20-hour motion or however long that is and ramping up that conflict cycle. That's what's going to make your divorce not amicable. That's what's going to make it expensive and stressful. If you have the 10-minute phone call attorneys on both sides, which your process is built to do inherently, then you are going to then build, even if you're not amicable now, you have a pathway to it.
Yes. If the professionals are experienced, which is another thing that we vet for, they can look at a situation, triage it, and know what the most likely outcome is. A common situation that we have come up is a divorce is pending in the amicable process and somebody terminates the other person's health insurance. It's open enrollment. They're like, I'm going through a divorce. And so they take the spouse off the health insurance and the spouse gets a notice. So in a traditional litigation case, and I use this example in the book that we'll get to, I go through like a motion that would be filed, how long they'd have to respond, how long you would go through this and how much it would cost. Whereas I can call opposing counsel and say, hey, my client got this alert. And they'll say, oh my gosh, that shouldn't have happened. It's still open enrollment. We can put them right back on the policy. Problem solved, because that is actually the likely result of the problem. Whereas with the traditional sense, open enrollment would be long over. You would have no remedy to really go back in time and cure that issue. And so that's why we vet for experience as well, because people have been through these situations. They know what the law is. They know what the court's likely to do, and they guide the clients towards reasonable conclusions.
Yeah. Well, and a reasonable conclusion is the one that works best for everyone.
Correct.
Get the person back on the health insurance, right? Instead of turning it into World War III. So all of the vetting is important. Another thing that I want to make sure people know that you've added, and it's a wonderful addition, and my listeners are well acquainted with Story Jones and Detour Life. And in fact, Amicable Divorce Network clients and professionals have now a tech platform, Detour Life.
Yes. So we do the vetting, and then we actually have an out-of-court process that is very organized, has forms so that everybody knows what's going on. And the third thing that we've added, which I think really adds to the efficiency and transparency, is partnering with Detour Life. This is an online cloud-based financial software. It also has parenting plan features. My clients can go in, they sync their bank accounts, their credit cards, their retirement accounts with the system. so that every day their marital balance sheet updates. They can pull a budget. They can work on a future budget. They can work on a budget for the college age student. We can do settlement scenarios. And there's several just really key benefits to this. In a traditional litigation case, you're essentially giving paperwork to a paralegal who then comes in there and tries to figure out the average electric bill, whereas the system just pulls that from the bank. So you've just cut hours of time there, but you've also cut down on human error, because what is often used is an Excel spreadsheet. And I've been a mediator way too many times where I've seen, oh, that number's not correct because we accidentally deleted the equation, or something was off about it. And we might be 5 hours into a mediation before this is realized. And with the software, it really cuts down on that and really increases collaboration. The client doesn't need to contact me to look at a settlement offer or a budget. They can do that on a Saturday night in the comfort of their home. And it really just sort of opens up the doors of information and collaboration. We can add the other side or not. We can add a mediator. We can add a mortgage professional. So clients also aren't continuing to give duplicative information to multiple professionals. We can just add them to our platform. Clients have really loved working with it. It's been, really great. They really like all the bells and whistles, looking at their future budget. Some of them keep it after the case because they really like the budgeting and want to make sure that they're on task. But it really allows us to use the cutting edge technology to reduce time and cost for clients.
I've always loved Detour Life. I've loved it since the first time Story showed it to me. And really what I think is its best feature, and this is for listeners, but it's for the professionals who are listening as well, is how client friendly it is.
Yes.
It makes life so much easier for the clients. That aspect that you talked about where they can just directly connect their accounts safely and securely. They use Stripe's back end. But so you don't have to go and pull together or download all of your statements and then have to keep them up to date. Everything's just connected and it just can do it automatically. It cuts down on the time that people, and just, at a time when you're under so much stress as it is, and you've got so much on your plate, having to go and pull all that information together, not once, not twice, but like
many times,
many times. You're right. Clients love it. They really do.
It's really interesting because it also pulls at least an 18-month transaction history. And we often see in cases where I hear sometimes they'll say, oh, well, my spouse spends $10 a day at Starbucks and that's, breaking the bank and we need to change that. I can actually go into all of their transactions and run a Starbucks report and say, oh my gosh, you're right. Or, well, it's not quite as much as you think. And, actually really get to the heart of the data. It really helps resolve disputes when you have hard data directly from a bank. And it's all right there. It hasn't been manipulated by anybody. It's pulling directly from the financial institution, and we're dealing with the best information possible. So it really helps resolve the he said, she said, so to speak, of some of these financial issues. You can just look at the facts.
It's hard to argue with the facts when they're in front of you. And often people just sort of get ideas in their head that really aren't based on the facts, but they're in there. So it can be really helpful to be working from a factual basis. The other thing I wanted to be sure to point out, because you're talking about vetted divorce professionals, it's not just attorneys.
Correct. We invite anybody to membership who helps people before, during, and after divorce. So we have some major categories, of course, legal, ADR, including mediation, arbitration, parent coordination, real estate, mortgage, financial, wellness, mental health, of course. I mean, we have hypnotherapists that specialize in helping people, and of course, coaches. So I'm always expanding the database when somebody's like, I have this really niche specialty I'm passionate about. We're always adding new professionals that are passionate about helping people.
Building on that, one of the things that you've done is you've built this huge vetted database of top professionals from around the country, around the world. And everything's in place for individual couples or people who are facing divorce or a family law matter to go in and find their curated, vetted team, right? That's wonderful. But you've gone a step further. A quick break here, but we'll be right back with more from Tracy Ann Moore-Grant. And be sure to stick around because it gets even better in the second half, where Tracy Ann reveals how her new book pulls together 80 plus expert insights, including a chapter on how to use AI tools to support your divorce journey. And you might recognize the author of that chapter. So stick around. What we cover next might just change the way you think about what's possible in divorce. But first, a quick note from one of our sponsors. Let's take a little minute to talk about something special. If you follow me on Instagram, you all know how much I love my evil eye pendant. I love I have my bracelet. I have the pendant that goes around my neck. I wear evil eyes all the time. And so many of you have reached out asking where I got them. I'm thrilled to share with you all, drum roll please, that my favorite jewelry source, Yumi You Jewelry, is now a sponsor of Divorce and Beyond. For me, Yumi You Jewelry is more than just jewelry. The symbols are symbols of strength, individuality, and empowerment. And they handcraft each piece with love and care. And so they are designed to help women stand out and embrace our unique personalities. So whether it's an evil eye like I have chosen for protection, a hamsa for faith, or any other meaningful symbol, their pieces offer beauty and inspiration even during these tough times like divorce. So here's the best part. Yumi You is giving my listeners an exclusive discount if you use the code BEYOND, that's BEYOND, all caps, at checkout. You'll get 20% off your order. 20%. So if you're looking for a meaningful piece to keep you inspired or to protect you during this difficult time, visit divorcebeyond.com/YumiYu. That's YUMIYU. There will be a link in the show notes. And treat yourself or treat someone you love to something special. You deserve it. Now, let's get back to the second half of the show. You've taken your experts, your vast array of these vetted professionals, and you have pulled their collective wisdom together, their advice, their insights. These are experienced professionals in a variety of areas before, during, and after divorce. And you pulled it all together into a book.
I did.
Yes. And when I say you did, you did.
I've always been called extra, so we're just always going to take it the extra mile. So yes, we did this.
It's not a tiny book.
It is not. It is almost 500 pages. So I last year in 2024 reached out to the members, hey, thinking about doing this book, send me your ideas for what should be in it. And we got so many great ideas that I really didn't cut any. So it really is, we call it the roadmap to resolution, Divorce Amicably, your roadmap to resolution, because it really does take you down the road of divorce, beginning with, do you want a divorce or not? Should you go to therapy? How do you tell your spouse about divorce? How do you decide which type of divorce? All the way through financial decisions, mediation. And then after the fact, how do you co-parent? Should you start dating? So it really is a divorce dictionary. We have all the topics in there. So if you are facing a very specific issue, like a gray divorce, you can pick up the book and read the topics that are applicable to that situation. And it's really great for anybody facing divorce to help with decision making and sometimes just understand the process. Sometimes people are really intimidated. Professionals use a lot of different terms and talk about things that people can read this and get more versed about what is going on. I've also included a checklist that people can take to a consult with an attorney, break down how attorneys bill their time, which may or may not be a popular chapter with some. But, I haven't ever seen a book out there that got the perspective of many different disciplines of professionals that was really guiding people to how to save their time, money, and sanity through divorce. A lot of the books are from one perspective, mental health or financial, and we really just took everybody, put them in the same book, and that's why it's almost 500 pages.
500 pages, more than 80 topics, yes. Right? I mean, if you can think of it, and it's an issue that might be facing your divorce, or you're curious about it because you're thinking about divorce, or you went through a divorce and now you're not sure about something, guess what, guys? I've looked through the book. It's in here. There's a topic in here. And that actually is one of the reasons why it's such a wonderful resource, because no matter what it is you're looking at, you can go to the table of contents and you're going to find it. Now, here's the third spoiler alert. I'm included in the book, and I was very honored when Tracy reached out. My little part is on how you can use AI as someone going through divorce to support you, to help you as you're making decisions and all that. There's additional aspects of using technology, which is, I can tell you, not too many people have the foresight to be including technology support in their books these days. I don't think you'll see if there's another one, I don't know of it. But you really do cover everything from A to Z.
Yeah, we definitely tried to. And technology really is the cutting edge, and it really is allowing us right now to reduce time, be efficient. And what we see in the court system, of course, is they're 10 years behind. If it was just recently, you could hook up your computer and show a PowerPoint presentation in the courtroom, so to be talking about how to use AI or Detour Life or SoberLink or Our Family Visit or other technology solutions that really help move through the process, it really is a very modern approach that you wouldn't see adopted by the court system because they're just unfortunately quite behind the ball. So if we can vest people going through a divorce or other professionals with this information about, you could test for that. You can really use this technology to settle that issue or make sure that somebody's sober. They can present that solution for their case and get it resolved. So thank you so much for your contribution. I'm personally very passionate, technology and divorce need to go hand in hand.
Yeah, well, and as you know, that's one of my burning topics of the day. And I truly feel that, and I was so delighted that you asked me to contribute that particular section, because this AI tool can really be an additional support for the people going through the divorce process. And that's how I wrote that particular
we're not talking
section.
about using AI as your lawyer, just to be clear.
Yes. No.
This is how you can use it to really help you through your divorce case and use other technologies. So really just an informational thing. I have had people reach out about, and I've seen some communication sent to me where I'm like, you used AI to act like a lawyer and send that to me. That is not what we're talking about. Don't do that.
and in fact, the stats show that AI doesn't do that great a job when it comes to lawyering. It tends to make things up, as we've heard.
Yes.
But it does, what it does do is does a very good job of supporting someone who's trying to make decisions.
Exactly.
And who needs some support and some understanding and someone to sort of, I call it a brainstorming partner. And it's really excellent at that. And a lot of times that's what clients need. That's what people, they're making, as we always say, some of the biggest and most important decisions of their lives at a very confusing and difficult and emotional time. And, our little buddy ChatGPT or Claude or whomever it might be can be an actual additional support along with the professionals. And yes, I do think the professionals can use it as well, but that's not what this book is intended for. This book is for the people going through or facing divorce or family law matters.
Yes, absolutely. We're here to give really practical advice, really practical information that is for people going through divorce, that they can learn more, have better decision making, understand more about the process. I've had so many people say, "Oh my God, I didn't even know that you could choose you could choose your process." And yes, of course. I always say you have 3 different roads. That's why we have the roadmap. So people have choices, and giving them the information they need to make better decisions, really just helps everybody have a better divorce. So that on the other side of that divorce, they have more money in their pocket. They can now move on with their life. They hopefully have a better co-parenting relationship and a little bit better, hopefully, mental health with themselves, because the traditional litigation process just really drains people financially and emotionally.
Beyond that, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's just
It's an understatement.
unfortunately, right. It's one of those things. Tracy Ann and I have been involved in both sides of that fence. We've seen how people walk out of the process when they've gone through a litigated divorce, and we both very well know the unimaginable difference.
Yeah.
Except we can imagine it. But if you can't, just trust us on this. The difference when you go through an amicable divorce is a night and day one. And really that's, another reason why the book is so important. And I say this, and I've said it so many times to my listeners, they're probably tired of it, but one of the most important times in your divorce process, and probably the most dispositive time in your divorce process, is the early days.
Yeah.
Is the process of, am I going to get divorced? And once you've made the decision or you've been told you're getting a divorce, what you do in those first early weeks, that has almost everything to do with how you're going to walk out of that divorce, because that's when decisions get made, like what lawyer to choose, what process or what road of the 3 roads that you talked about. And that's why I think the book is especially important if you're one of those people out there who's thinking divorce might be in your future, or if it's a recent addition into your life. Because if you walk through the roadmap outlined in the book, because it follows all along, even if you just randomly were to read, from the beginning, from the middle, and from the end, you almost get a mirror or a crystal ball of what the future can look like.
Yeah. I mean, people need to know that they have choices and they really are in charge of their destiny. And there's always this misunderstanding, I think, that the Amicable Divorce Network can't handle difficult cases, that it is an uncontested divorce solution, or it's for people who are amicable. And it just isn't. We've seen a major pivot towards our network because we are private and out of court. We've seen many people access our process and our professionals for high asset cases because they want to keep that private, and they're also concerned about money. We've seen a lot of addiction issues because people don't want that in the public record for employers to be reading, or schools, or whatever the situation might be. And many complicated issues, including mental health and, of course, substance abuse and more, because it's also customizable. We help a lot of families that have special needs children because we control the timeline. So if a child needs the focus, we can hit the pause button. We can focus on something else. This is an option simply not available to people in a litigation standpoint. It's totally out of your control. You're going to show up on Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. if the judge says so. But in this ecosystem that we've created, just this environment for resolution with the right professionals, process, and technology, the parties are in the driver's seat of their destiny. And so it really is quite empowering for people. And we've been able to help people with a wide range of issues and challenges and handle it very efficiently and privately for them.
Yeah, I think that's really one of the maybe downsides to having the word amicable in the name of the network. Yeah. Well, it's interesting though, right? Because I think people might see it and think, oh, well, we're not amicable.
I hear that all the time. I can't have an amicable divorce. And I'm like, you don't need to. I'll handle that part.
Put it in the hands of your professionals and know that I really love that you've come up with the understanding and are able to state it, because it makes all the sense in the world. But it really pulls it together to say it doesn't need to be the parties who are the amicable ones. It needs to be the professionals who are there to help guide and support.
Exactly. We vet the professionals, but the parties going through the divorce, they're anybody that needs a divorce that simply is choosing an out-of-court process that's private. They value efficiency and better mental health at the end of it. And no matter how complicated it is, that's why we have experienced professionals and 80 topics to talk about, is because we're guiding people on really any issue can be resolved outside of the court system, and we're experienced in doing that. And so we welcome anybody to reach out and learn more.
Well, and that's, speaking of the 80 plus topics, I thought maybe I could ask you about a few of the topics that maybe stood out. And I'm going to jump on the first one, which popped out to me because I thought you did an excellent job. Yep. This is one of the sections, you wrote several of the sections of the book, but chapter 19 starts out with hiring a divorce attorney.
Yes.
And I just thought maybe share a few of your golden nuggets with the listeners for that one, because it goes back to what I was talking about a minute ago. Some of the decisions that you make in the early days of your divorce are actually going to have the longest lasting, dispositive impact on how your divorce will turn out. And I can't think of one that is more important than the attorney that you choose.
Exactly. I think something that I always recommend to people is it's a little bit like speed dating. You shouldn't just go to one attorney. Please do, meet with 2 or 3. See who you feel comfortable with. Is somebody addressing your concerns? Is it feel like somebody that you can talk to? They should feel like a team member. They just shouldn't feel like a bulldozer, and you shouldn't be intimidated to ask them questions or talk to them because they're going to be guiding your life and then they're going to be gone. So, you really should be in charge of that situation. Always, feel comfortable with the attorney that you are hiring. And we are strong advocates. I always was asked, and it was a major irritant during my career, can I be a bulldog? Now I'm in Georgia, so we have the Georgia Bulldogs here. So, there was always like, can I? I don't know. It was like, yes, but like, I'm not going to be mean to you because you're my client, and that doesn't get you anywhere. So there's this misconception that people should hire like the most aggressive lawyer, the shark, the bulldog. And I can say, without any reservation that when you are hiring an attorney's anger, that is the most expensive service that you can pay for in your divorce. You need to really reframe your thinking, and you need to know that you're hiring an attorney for their ability to problem solve, because only 5% of cases ever see the inside of a courtroom. Most of them get resolved. So you want to be focusing on, how am I going to get this case resolved? What sort of techniques do you have? What do you recommend as a course of action for me? How can I meet my goals? These are my goals, and be clear about that. That's another chapter in the book. If it's to keep the house, to have primary custody, to get your 401k, whatever it is, think about that and see if this person can give you practical advice and be a team member. But when you hire the attorney's anger and you expect them to be a megaphone to amplify your anger into the court system, it's an absolute waste. I can say as an attorney, I didn't respond at all to those communications. So they just went right into the trash can. So somebody might feel good for a moment, but it doesn't advance your case at all. You're paying a lot for nothing. And you should really focus on somebody who is going to help you have a healthy future. Take the anger and the hurt that you may feel. And I completely understand that. I'm divorced myself. But use that, in therapy. Think of the money that you can save in your divorce process and plan that trip that you've always wanted to take, or something else that would make you happy, because it is just money wasted on a contested divorce. So do make sure that the person that you hire is aligned with your principles, and that they're offering services like mediation. They're talking to you about mediation and settlement, because if somebody is only talking to you about going to court and filing that motion, that's the only skill they have to sell. And so that's the only skill you're going to be getting. So you really need to make sure that somebody has a wide variety of services that will benefit you as a client.
I know you're preaching to the choir, but that's that is everything that you just said there. It could be an episode standalone of its own on how to choose an attorney, because it's so important for people to understand. It feels in that moment when you're hurt or you're upset or you're angry, and somebody says, there was this law firm. It always brings this to mind. There was a law firm in one of the cities that I used to practice in, and their firm's slogan was, when the rings come off, the gloves go on. Yeah. And they had a picture of boxing gloves, right? That was and that was really appealing to people who were hurt or angry or upset. And so they were actually quite successful in getting clients.
Yeah,
they were not successful in holding on to clients.
Yeah.
Because hopefully that initial anger or fear or whatever that might be tends to subside over time, and you become more forward focused in your life. You want to move through your divorce. You want to start your beyond, as we say on this show, right?
Yeah.
And you find that somebody who's out there with the gloves on, and I love that you say that's the only skill that they have, and they're not strategic. They're not problem solving. They're not good negotiators. They're not getting you to your beyond. They're keeping you in your past.
Yeah. Another red flag is if they're just telling you everything you want to hear or guaranteeing results. If you're throwing it up to a judge, nobody knows what's going to happen. So if somebody is like, oh, you'll definitely get this, and, I'm going to, get this for you, and you'll definitely get, all these different things, that's a huge red flag, because the future is unknown, and nobody can know that. And so be very wary of people making you promises. And, to your example, when the rings come off, instead of the boxing gloves, people should really think I'm looking for white glove service. I'm looking for somebody to delicately handle my family, my children, my finances, to take care, to really handle this properly and guide me to a very comfortable future as best as it can be. So I think if people just would rephrase their thinking about that and hire divorce attorneys for services that will really benefit their family, it would really change the process overall into the future. And we're seeing a lot of people, because of podcasts like yours and books and different things, where people are getting really smart about divorce and are starting to ask the right questions and are starting to understand the hidden costs or the unnecessary costs. And so we are seeing a huge shift, especially with the younger generation where their parents got divorced and they don't want that type of divorce. I see that all the time. Gray divorce, they're approaching, retirement. They don't want to set their money on fire. So they're looking for efficient solutions. So, we're here to help everybody and just guide them with, more of a white glove service through their divorce process.
That is a great reframe, by the way. If that firm that I know ever wanted to keep their logo, but keep their tagline, but change their logo from boxing gloves to a white glove service, you've just changed their entire paradigm. Unfortunately, I don't think it's in their DNA, but
no.
And they won't be members of the Amicable Divorce Network.
Sadly, they don't sound like a good fit.
But there are, the good news is you have grown and you continue to grow. New chapters are opening up around the country. You're in more than half of the states already, in the UK, in Canada, and more to come. If somebody were looking to have an amicable divorce or hire some amicable divorce professionals, what's the best way to get in touch with the Amicable Divorce Network?
You can go to amicableddivorcenetwork.com and look at our membership directory. We also have, in keeping with the book, a website called Divorce Amicably. That's for clients. So if you're looking for specific information on co-parenting, finances, we have it all broken down into different topics that also follow the chapters in the book. And so you can get the best information and access our database on each website.
So it's all there for you. The book is there as well, but the book is also available on Amazon. We'll have links to both. One thing I will say to you, I say it to you listeners all the time. If you get the book, you will find it helpful. I have no doubt about that. But the number one thing you can do to help other people find the book is leave a review. So please do leave a review. Let people know that you found value in the book. And I've said this, we've said it as many different ways as you can say this on this show in the 5 years that the show has been out. But an education on the topic, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Knowledge is your roadmap, is your easy pass to a better life, to a better beyond, a better future. This book has it all in there. It's all there. It really is.
I didn't mean for it to be 500 pages, but I kept getting such great information from our members that I was like, I can't cut this topic or cut down this tip. So we just included it all. So hopefully a lot of people out there find it useful. And if you do leave a review, I'll say, tell us what your favorite chapter is, because there's a little bit of a competition going on between the authors. So let us know, because some of them want some bragging rights. So we like to know what people identify with.
All I'm going to say, guys, if you like the AI chapter.
Yeah, what's not to like, guys? Come on.
Well, Tracy Ann, thank you so much for coming on, for giving us the update. But, I have to say, as a professional who's been in this space for 35 years, I've seen the progression of the practice over that period of time. I've been in this space for a very, very long time. And I loved what you were doing from the very first time you and I spoke. And to see the success of what you've been able to build and grow here, and to see the trajectory and where it's going, there's only up from here. Yeah. It's all been up, and there's only, more that you can do. But you're changing the face of divorce for people.
Yeah, that's a heavy lift.
In a systemic way, right? I think as an amicable practitioner, someone who tried to be that type of attorney in my space, and as a mediator, I tried to do it, but I was only doing it one couple at a time.
Yeah. You have to have other people to be amicable with, right? To be really successful. So
You're changing it from within, and that's how we really will change things. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Great endorsement. I appreciate it.
No, always. And always happy to have you here. We'll have you back when you hit your next 12 countries. So, which won't take long, or when the book comes out in its second edition, although I can't think of what topic.
I don't know what we left out, but I'm sure there's some.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, before we go, let's recap a few of the golden nuggets from today's conversation that could change the way you approach divorce. So first, remember, amicable does not mean easy, but it does mean intentional. You don't have to get along with your ex to have an amicable divorce. What matters is that you work with professionals who are resolution focused and trained to reduce conflict, not escalate it. Our next golden nugget, you can have answers up front. With the Amicable Divorce Network's court-free process and their flat fee professionals, clients often know the timeline and expected cost from day one. No more open-ended retainers or endless litigation. 3, your team matters more than you think. Who you hire sets the tone for your entire divorce. Hiring a lawyer for their anger may feel good short term, but it's the most expensive and least productive choice you can make. In fact, I have entire episodes on that topic, right, folks? All right, next golden nugget, and this one's dear to me. Technology is your friend. From secure platforms like Detour Life to AI tools that support decision-making, like I talk about in my chapter of the book, today's divorce process can be smarter, faster, and more client-friendly if you know what's available. And finally, our last golden nugget, just know you have options and the power to choose. Tracy Ann's message is clear in this episode. Your divorce does not have to look like your parents or your neighbors or your best friends because you have choices. You can take the high road, and now, thanks to this book, you've got the roadmap to help you do it. All right, so if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might be facing divorce. And don't forget to check out Divorce Amicably, your roadmap to resolution. It's available now on Amazon and through the links in the show notes. You can do this, and you don't have to do it alone. Thank you for joining me today on the Divorce and Beyond podcast. I hope you found some information and inspiration to help you on this journey. Please join me every Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a new episode. And if you like the show, please take the time to subscribe and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. You can also find more information on the website at divorceandbeyondpod.com, where you'll find links to the YouTube channel, transcripts of the episodes, and other bonus content. So I'll see you next week to help you move through your divorce and beyond.